Garalica's Greycap tried not to squirm while his fellow mercenary fitted his armor on him. As he held his arm out, he felt the familiar weight of the slab of petrified mushroom that would protect it. His friend pulled the leather straps tight and then held the tall, pointed gray cap on his head while putting the back part on his helm in place. The front piece attached to the back, leaving an opening for the cap to stick through. Better to have a small, hard-to-reach weak spot than ever be seen capless. 2 small silver bands lay strapped to the cap. One displayed an image of a shield, while the other sported a small silver sword. Across from Garalica sat his opponent, also the reason for his squirming. Garalica counted himself as an average fighter at best, with only 2 silver sigils proclaiming his mediocre training. His opponent, however, wore a cap full of gold. Garalica couldn't help but count them all out as he was outfitted. Gold sigil of the sword, gold sigil of the spear, gold sigil of the shield, the pike, the lance, the mace, the flail. If it could be used to kill, this gnome had mastered it. 2 to 3 sigils per gold ring set around a cap as black as midnight. A lord's cap. If he had been born in the South instead of the Northwest, he would have been called a king. Just because the customs of his land forbade him that title didn't mean they didn't strip him of any of the power. Or Garalica noted, the bowels shaking look of menace. Beneath the cap was a face weathered from frequent rides to war. A wild beard framed 2 cool eyes that barely seemed to notice Garalica as he prepared. The black cap wasn't so much arrogant or cocky as seasoned. He was a gnome who would strike an opponent with unmatched fury, whether it was a mighty challenge or a little worm. Worst of all, the Lord was just sitting, waiting. His armor was only black ant chitin. It might turn a misplaced blow, but it wasn't sturdy enough to protect him from a sword thrust or a suitable blow. It was flexible, however, and the rumor was that he never took it off. Brill Arger Blackcap had arrived to the duel and simply seated himself. "You can't kill him, you know," Taval Greycap, Garalica's friend, said. "Thank you ever so much for the measure of confidence." "Well, besides how good he is, he's the patriarch of the most powerful house in all of Undercap. His family has worn black caps all the way back to the founding of the realm. Hell, the entire middle of the country is named after it. People like that just don't die. That's what we're for." Garalica sighed and took a pro-offered wineskin. He took a deep draught of blue bottle, the drink that had gotten him in the mess to begin with. It wouldn't get him out, but if he drank enough, he might just die having gotten rid of his hangover. He had had far too much to drink the night before. Not that it was fair that the most powerful lord in the whole of the North should decide to take a stroll through the muck of a mercenary camp late at night. Not that it was fair that the most powerful lord in the whole of the North should decide to take a stroll through the muck of a mercenary camp late at night, but he had. And Garalica had been so drunk, not only had he failed to get out of the way, but he had challenged the man who had knocked him down to a duel. Any other noble might have merely kicked the drunken houseless mercenary while he was down, sneered, and been on his way. But Brill Blackcap was not a gnome to sneer. Instead, he held others to their word. Because a gnome who seldom talks but sharpens his sword all day has little to fear from words. The tired mercenary grudgingly exchanged the wine for his shield and took hold of the hilt of his cheap bronze sword. Lineage as black as an ant's ass, enough gold on his cap to make a king jealous, and better with a point than a patient politician. And it's leveled at me. "Actually, he's using a mace." "Damn it, Tavald. Can you let me choose my last words in peace?" Brill Arger Blackcap unfolded himself from his seat and wrapped a single powerful hand around an iron mace. Legend was, once Brill Arger the Black had a weapon in his hand, he never let it go until someone lay dead. The large lord advanced on Garalicus at a steady pace. The mercenary lifted his shield and readied his sword. Shit, 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 he muttered under his breath as his opponent got closer. Losing his cool, Garalicus swung wildly at Brill. The tough gnome simply twisted his body casually out of the way of the swing. The sword swung back around in a hack, which the black cap parried with his mace. This left Garalicus' sword trapped between the mace and his own shield. He tried shoving forward only to find himself pushed back. He almost slipped in the muck under the weight of his armor, which was essentially stone. He lifted up his shield up just as the powerful blow smashed into it, almost leaving the mercenary breathless. When he recovered, he tried to jab around the shield, but the larger lord simply used the back of his hand to flick the sword away and out of Garalicus' grip. Brill brought his mace up over his opposite shoulder and swung. The ball of the mace hit the inside edge of Garalicus' shield and tore it backwards. The leather straps broke, but not before the mercenary's arm was wrenched back painfully. Garalicus was already screaming in pain when the mace smashed into his chest. The force of it sent him to the ground and actually cracked his armor. Lying on the ground, his arm was useless. Pain laced through his chest where several ribs felt cracked. The black cap grabbed the edge of his helmet and lifted him, yelling, back to his feet. There, the battle-hardened lord lifted his mace for the final blow. Garalicus clutched his chest. He didn't even feel his hand get cut on a sharp protrusion. He just stood there waiting for the end to come. But it didn't. For some reason, the patriarch of House Arger just stood there, weapon raised. A collective gasp rose from the audience. Blood spurted out of the lord's mouth and ran into his black beard. Garalicus' eyes widened in surprise, until he looked more closely and found himself clutching a sliver of his armor, the other end of which was embedded in his opponent's armpit. He, a houseless mercenary, had just, without knowing it, killed the most powerful man in the realm with a pathetic sliver of living rock. Shit. Both gnomes fell over at once as the crowd descended on them.